Here at Vibe Science, ultimately, we're here to empower you to your best self. It's about mind, body, and energy. And you know what? When you work out a lot, when you're eating a healthy diet, it's hard to get enough sodium. It is one of the most important factors in hydration, and hydration controls so many variables of how we feel, how our brain thinks. That's why we're proud to partner with Warrior Salt. Hey, we like to take the BS out of stuff. This is no bullshit, just electrolytes, straight fruit powder and salt, the real deal. I love this product because it's simple. Sometimes we get overcomplicated in the supplements we take, but all I know and what I've learned and the science has proven is you have to have enough salt for that balance of hydration. This stuff mixes really easy with water, as you see. You got to be watching the YouTube to get the full effect of this. How easy that mixes in, and a very simple citrus flavor that's delicious, easy to drink, and perfect before and after the exercise to stay hydrated. Look, if you're already thirsty, you've waited too long. That's why you need Warrior Salt, official partner of Vibe Science and Ryan Alford. Delicious and will keep you hydrated all day long. Coming up on today's episode of Vibe Science, we're unpacking the real weight behind weight. Not just what you carry on the outside, but what you hold inside. Today's sparks to listen for: big kid, bigger habits. Sports taught strength, but not balance. Change starts where willpower ends. Shame is heavy, silence is heavy, and healing begins with help. It's raw, it's honest, it's real talk you don't want to miss. Today on Vibe Science.
I was in the emergency room, and the physician on call came into the room. I had my mom on speakerphone. So I gave him the green light to go ahead and tell her what was going on. The cherry on top was, it's amazing he's doing as well as he is, considering how sick he is. And I don't know if you've ever been able to hear someone's silence before. I could hear my mother's silence in that moment. It was deafening how quiet she was after he told her that. I wasn't one of those stereotypical fat people who's got this stash of candy bars and cookies and chips and stuff laying around. It's that when I had that sandwich, I had the chips and I didn't stop until the chips were gone. That's what the problem was. Supplements is the next step to see if it can help me out. Changing what I'm eating is also the next step, because right now the focus is changing how I'm eating. If I failed again, which was my mentality in the beginning, I only wanted it to be my failure. I didn't want to disappoint everybody else.
This is Vibe Science, a top 100 wellness podcast presented by the Radcast Network, breaking wellness barriers and making health truly personal. Here are your hosts, Ryan Alford and Chris Hansen.
Hello, and welcome to Vibe Science. We're always taking you to your highest vibe. It's about mind, body, energy, as we empower you to be the best version of yourself. As always, joined by my good friend, Chris Hansen down in Miami. What's up, Chris?
What's up, Ryan? How are you today, big dog?
I'm great, man. I'm excited. It's going to be a little different episode for us. I feel like, we talked pre-episode. We talk so much about like the theory of things and the, creators of things to help you go to your highest vibe. But I think one of the parts we wanted to really start to bring to our audience is the ground floor of people's journeys with different things that impact their health and wellness, and talking about what it's like dealing with these things, the journey through it, and most specifically today, talking about what a lot of people, myself included, have struggled with at times, and that's eating and weight. It's probably one of the most common challenges that we face as man. Ironically enough, in a world of abundance that we have, and it's exciting to kind of get to that level. So I'm pumped, not only because for two reasons: one, a different take on what we typically do, and two, we got Larry D. He's on the podcast network. He is the host of Bears Talk Underground. What's up, Larry?
How we doing?
Good, man. Glad you could join us.
Thanks for having me on.
Exactly, man. I mean, Chris, we've talked about it. It's great to have people on and talk about all these solutions, but we need to talk more about what it's like dealing with the challenges in life, right?
I was thinking when you were giving his intro, like, we're always looking for what's raising your vibe, like you said. And I'm like, today we got just Larry's vibe raising the vibe. Like your energy, it's a good vibe, dude. You got a good energy and a good aura about you. So I'm excited to dive deep and let people hear more about your journey and your story.
Let's do it.
Larry D, where's home? And set the table for our audience.
Born and raised in Chicago. Went to high school in the North Shore in Evanston, just right outside of Northwestern. Always been a lifelong Bears fan, and to bring it into what we're talking about here today, always been the big kid. Always had a weight problem to one degree or another. It worked for me when I was an athlete, but unfortunately, I haven't been an athlete for almost 30 years now, and but I still ate like one for years and years and years, and just recently, finally doing something about it instead of being the person that always talked about wanting to do it and getting people to tell me, oh, well, your head's in the right place. You're doing that, and then not do anything while I continue to overeat and not exercise. I mean, I painted myself in a pretty awful corner before I finally started to do something about it.
Larry, talk about like growing up, you're playing sports, offensive lineman, like a good friend of mine, Eric Mac Lane. He's actually on the ESPN network. He was offensive lineman at Clemson, national championship team. And now he's one of the voice of the ACC network.
Nice.
Done really well for himself, but he struggles with this and did. He's kind of had that yo-yo of dieting and everything. I've seen it. He doesn't even talk about it per se, but I've seen it with him because I see it with O-linemen. He's the example because I see, it pays to be big, either monetarily or in high school with accolades and being a good player. Yeah. And then, talk about a little bit of that. Like, what was it like in high school? And like, what was your kind of relationship with food?
Well, the food was fuel because I constantly had something that could either level me out or, that maybe even have some kind of deficit. So I needed to eat more because I was burning more energy, whether it was in the off season with lifting. And I was also a shot putter on the track team. So I was pretty much an athlete year round, but there was constant, activity. So I almost felt justified in how I was eating because I wasn't really gaining much weight. The weight that I was gaining was the muscle mass from the constant lifting and everything. And yeah, I still did have a gut and everything, but I was in shape and more athletic than most people I knew.
Yeah. Now, did you feel like you struggled with, obviously you're using it as food, but like looking back, but you were the big kid. You're the O-lineman. Like you're supposed to be like that big. And I don't know. I'm not here to like shine like, well, we're not making our high schoolers healthy because they need to be offensive. I'm not that guy, but I am like, I don't know if it's teaching the best habits. If we coach kids the right way.
It also is kind of if I knew then what I know now kind of thing. It wouldn't have been, like I'm constantly justified in the cheeseburgers and stuff. I need the calories. There probably would have been a focus on what I was eating instead of the fact that I was just able to shovel down another 500 calories or whatever. But that's all right because I have lifting today and then I have practice afterwards. It'll even itself out, kind of thing. I think even today's kids, because like if you could see the weight room my high school has now, you would think they were supporting a pro team.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, versus the little corner in the back room that we had to support and we had a bigger program. We had 80, 90 kids on the varsity team, and the weight room we had for that many players is kind of ridiculous versus what they have now. It's like I'm sure they've torn down a couple of gyms to make room for all the weight equipment and everything they have at my high school now. So those kids are in a much better position. Like if I was, out there playing now, maybe I'd still be heavy, but I think that I would be pointing in a much better direction to being at least more healthy than I was before.
How was it after high school, Larry? Obviously eating, putting on weight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to make you dig.
What was
deep
that
here,
journey?
But yeah, that journey.
Well, it
Was
started
a downward progression.
The
And
funny thing is, the decline began because of football. Me and a bunch of buddies were doing some weekend warrior football one Sunday afternoon. A bunch of guys that I met when I was in school and everything. We gathered up one Sunday, and we're playing tackle football out in an empty field somewhere. I, not to brag, made an awesome interception and was taking that boy to the house, and this guy, ran me down, and instead of wrapping me around the waist and taking me down, he jumped on my back. And when he jumped on my back, my knee buckled underneath me. And that was kind of the beginning of the end of me as an athlete, because now all of a sudden I'd managed to go my entire high school career with nothing more than a separated shoulder. And now I've got a busted wheel, and I don't have, rehab to help make it stronger and things like that. And never really got the knee taken care of. And slowly but surely I went from being, active for my size to being a fat guy.
Did you feel the social impact, Larry?
yeah,
Putting the weight on?
Yeah, I did. And it didn't help because I've always been more of a shy guy. Before I was an athlete and everything, I got picked on a lot for being the fat kid. And then as I got older, that becomes part of your brainwave, the shyness, the insecurity, and things like that. And then it definitely does mess with your head.
Larry, what ultimately gave you the wake up call?
Well,
whatever you're
was rock
sharing.
bottom?
Yeah.
Rock bottom. I mean, there were, and that was the funny thing was there were a few rock bottoms before we finally got to the final one. It's like I always managed to find a way to go lower.
The elevator can always go lower.
I mean, it was like, at first it was, the knee became a chronic thing, so I was getting around less. Then the new rock bottom was I could feel my knees every time I got up out of a chair. I felt my knees, and everything. So I had to stand up and give myself a second before I started moving. I had to give myself a second, let the blood recirculate and everything before I got up and started moving around. Then I had trouble with stairs. And then the new rock bottom was now I can't go up and down a flight of stairs without using the handrails. It became a full body experience as opposed to going up and down the stairs, still looking at my phone because my legs can do all the work. That's not the case for me. I need all my hands and my full attention, or I'm going to go tumbling down the stairs and things like that. But fast forward, and I remember the date, November 27th, 2022. I hadn't been feeling well. This was right after Thanksgiving. Hadn't been feeling well for a few days, which wasn't abnormal because that's the thing about when you get to be as big as I was, you get used to being uncomfortable pretty much all the time. But this was different. I wasn't feeling very well. I'd went through the usual like DIY remedies to try to fix it. It wasn't working. And so I took myself to the emergency room. I was like, I think I have an infection. I have some swelling and some redness down here and things like that. So they put me in there. And after a series of tests and x-rays, a CAT scan or an MRI, whichever one it was, turns out that I did have an infection. And it was a flesh-eating infection. What I thought was like a pimple or a cyst or something like that had opened underneath inside, and they had to go in and surgically remove it in order to save my life. Because they said if I waited another day, I may not have made it. I found out around 9:00 at night I needed emergency surgery. I was under the knife by 1 a.m. and had it taken out, and that began 6 weeks of being laid up in the hospital with this open wound on me. And let me tell you, if you think you know pain, have them take dried out medicated pads out of an open wound and then repack that wound right on top of it. I've never screamed like that in my life. Like they literally had to give me towels to chew on so that I wouldn't terrify the entire hospital when they had to do that twice a day. So, but yeah, it was 3 surgeries in 6 days. The first to remove the infection, the second one to make sure they got it all, and then the third to finally sew me up. Then I was in the hospital another 2 weeks. Then I went off to rehab for 3 weeks after that. I spent Christmas and New Year's in a rehab center by myself because, you know, of what I was not doing, or what I was doing and what I wasn't doing all at the same time. And it was like, then that's when I was finally diagnosed as diabetic and started having to take insulin and things like that. And like I mentioned before we started recording, is like, that was the kind of come to Jesus moment with, it's time to stop talking and start doing, as far as taking care of yourself. You know, I was in the emergency room, and the physician on call came into the room. I had my mom on speakerphone. So I gave him the green light to go ahead and tell her what was going on. And while he was running down the list of everything that was wrong with me, the cherry on top was, it's amazing he's doing as well as he is, considering how sick he is. And I don't know if you've ever been able to hear someone's silence before. I could hear my mother's silence in that moment. It was deafening how quiet she was after he told her that. So, you know, shaking my mother down to the core like that was more than enough of the motivation I needed to finally stop fucking around and do something with myself.
It's crazy. And thank you for sharing that, Larry. I know that's hard. Like, it's
yeah, brother. Thank you.
Yeah. And
that was powerful.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I want to do justice to like the question, you know, like of the impact of that. And it's, as humans, we have more ability than we recognize, but it's really crazy how far we will both push things and let things go.
Yeah.
Like, it's the new resets that we create for ourselves. Like, well, I would never be this. I would never do that. I would never like this. And somehow we reset it. And then you have to go through the most painful thing in your life to kind of like jar it out of you, of change. Like, it's.
Well, I think the most painful part was that I was sucking other people into it with me, you know, scaring my mother the way I did, freaking out my dad. Because this is when I was still living in Iowa. So I was 200 plus miles away. I was literally going through this all by myself. You know, I didn't have a social network out there in Cedar Rapids. So I was literally just out there by myself, and my parents couldn't get to me right away. Like, I went through all of that in the ER and my first surgery before my dad finally made it to me. And then a day or two later, my mom was able to finally get away and come down. So it was that, you know, not only was it alarming and frightening what was happening to me, but they couldn't be there with me while it was happening as well. So it wasn't so much that I was putting myself through. That's literally all I've done is put myself through this for one reason or another. But now I'm sucking other people in. You know, my best friend was all freaked out about it and really mad at me too, that I'd let it get this far and things like that. One of my best friends is a neonatal nurse, and he read me the riot act on waiting too long to go to the ER and things like that. So it was more that I was kind of sucking people in to my bullshit than it was just me putting myself through it.
That's an interesting kind of unpack there, because I think when there is a certain wake up, or not for everyone, but I've been there too, where like it's one thing when you're just doing it to yourself, but then when you go, oh shit, this is having a absolute detrimental impact on someone else, it becomes a different thing for most people. You know,
yeah, I had to let my mother think she might lose me before I finally did something about it.
You're like, oh, that's fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like, exactly. And that's what it's. And again, it's like the human condition. It's like amazing what we kind of put ourselves through, but then at the same time, we have the power to change it.
Yeah.
I mean, so what was the pinnacle, top of the heap weight? And then what were kind of the changes that you started making?
Heaviest documented weight, and I don't doubt that I was heavier at some point, but the heaviest weight that I have on paper was 631 pounds.
Wow.
And
How tall are you, Larry?
How tall? 5'11". 5'11".
What are you at today?
I just went to the doctor last week. I was down to 462.
Wow.
So I've lost about 170 pounds so far. So I lost an NFL DB so far. And, still got a lot of work to do. But where I am now versus where I was a year ago at this time when I really started working out and things like that are night and day. Like what I'm physically capable of to versus, like I said, the corner I painted myself in physically before I finally started doing something about it was pretty sad.
What's some of the things you're doing or changes that you had to make?
Well, going to the gym period was the first step.
Yeah, that helps.
It does. And when I moved back into the area by my family, I reconnected with an old buddy of mine from grade school. And, asked like, hey man, you want to get together? What are you doing this weekend? He's like, well, I work out on the weekends, on Saturday and Sunday morning and stuff like that. And I don't know why, but I was like, you mind if I join you? I was like, I'm not trying to like bogart your workout or anything. I know people really kind of use that as their solace or their solitude or anything. I basically just need someone there to make sure I show up. And this is where my fortune turned because, as the kids say, he understood the assignment as far as, he didn't think that all of a sudden he had to pal me in and, here's this weight that you probably can't lift, but do it anyway, be a man, that kind of thing. He stayed on me without staying on me about showing up and going. And then he introduced me to the trainer, and that's where everything changed. Once I finally started working with him. And then being here, being home with my family, living with my dad and my stepmom, I didn't feel as free as I did before to eat however I wanted. Somebody's watching, so I can't just shovel down this bag of chips or anything like that. It's, there's somebody here. I can't be eating at 1 a.m. They'll hear me in the kitchen, that kind of thing. So it gave... having other people there kind of allowed me to police myself a lot better than I had allowed myself to in the past.
Yeah. Accountability.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we all 100% need it on some level. Now, have you experimented with supplements or anything like that?
That's the next level for, for me. My buddy introduced me to that trainer. He's also the expert, so he can tell me what I need to be doing. And trusting somebody else with that kind of thing was also another step.
Yeah. Have you explored like GLP-1s?
I'm on Mounjaro actually because of my diabetes. I was able
helping?
100%. Yeah. It definitely helps with like curbing your appetite and things like that. See, one of the things, and I almost came to blows with a doctor over this once. He asked me how many times a day I was eating. And I told him the truth. I was like, I only eat twice a day. I was a lunch and dinner guy. I almost never ate breakfast. And he's like, okay, but you're constantly snacking, right? It's like, at this point, it's like, no, not really. It's just that when I eat enough to feed 2 or 3 people. It's like, well, how often are you hungry? It's like, honestly, I don't ever get hungry. It's like, I eat for 2 reasons. 1, because it's time, lunchtime, dinner time, or 2, because I feel like it. It's just that when I sat down to eat, it's going to take a while. So buckle up. That was the way that I used to eat. But the GLP-1s have been really helpful. And my A1C last week was down to 6.4. So technically I'm no longer diabetic. I'm pre-diabetic and my blood sugar levels are normal. My blood pressure is normal and all that kind of stuff. My doctor's just been thrilled in the year that I've been seeing him. The progress that my blood work is showing every time I come in, the A1C keeps coming down, the blood pressure, leveling out and all my numbers look good.
That's great. I've heard wonder stories about Mounjaro and semaglutide and all that. Like,
well, a buddy of mine, he tried Ozempic and there was one other one, but he was on the other end. Like they didn't help him. They hurt him. Wow. He had real bad stomach issues and like I had the same thing when my doctor prescribed metformin for me. And he was like, it's actually a blood sugar medication, but it has a side effect of weight loss. He's like, but you will have diarrhea. Like, he was not kidding when he said the diarrhea thing, to the point where I had actually worn out a fissure inside my colon. That's like having a cold sore inside your colon. So that was the longest 6 weeks of my life, waiting for that thing to heal. But he had similar issues with Ozempic and things like that. I've been fortunate in that aspect, and where whatever my doctors diagnosed me as turned out to be the proper diagnosis. The medications they prescribed worked. I've been very lucky as far as that goes. Like, as far as a person or a patient or whatever, I'm cookie cutter. I'm very easy. Like, this is the problem, this is how we fix it. And I've been fortunate that 9 times out of 10 is what works for me.
Larry, where are we headed? I mean, what's the goal? I know it's a journey all day, every day, but
yeah, I don't mean to be condescending or anything like that. I don't want to offend anyone, but I do treat this like, how someone who's had alcohol problems says, even after they're done drinking, they're still an alcoholic. So I'll always be, I always have a problem with food. So it's not something that I plan on, ever being done with or anything. Obviously, 470 at 47 is not a healthy weight to be at. So to continue doing what I'm doing, and like I was saying, you asked me about supplements. Supplements is the next step to see if it can to help me out. Changing what I'm eating is also like the next step, because right now the focus is changing how I'm eating. Like, when I would go to McDonald's, it would be, all right, let me get the double quarter pounder meal, make large fries, large drink, and then throw in 2 McChickens and another order of fries. And then I would eat all of it, every last morsel of it. Now it's go to McDonald's. Okay, give me the Big Mac meal, done, out the door. So I've literally cut out 1,000 calories that I was eating regularly and things like that. And just making those little changes. And also trying to take my head out of the equation. Like, to go to somebody's house and have them serve you a plate of food, you just look at it and automatically think that's not enough. I'm going to need more. It's like, I haven't touched it, I haven't tasted it or anything like that, but I've already decided there's going to be 2 or 3 more helpings than this and everything. Instead of deciding after I've eaten the first portion, do I want more? Instead of already making the decision that I'm going to have more and things like that.
What would you tell people, Larry, that might be listening and struggling with the same thing? Like, what would be kind of your, not that you're a guru, we all go through our own things, but what would you tell those people?
It's okay not to do it alone. Take your ego out of it. And, that's something that I struggled with for a long time, was that if I couldn't do it on my own, that I wasn't going to try. It's like that's all I've ever done since I started this, was team up with somebody else. Whether it was my buddy who was making sure that I was showing up, or now working with the trainer who put me through these cupcake workouts in the beginning, but is now actively trying to kill me 5 days a week when I go out there and see him. We've grown to this progression and everything. And don't be afraid to ask for help, because you never know, especially for somebody like me. People were waiting for that question to come. They were waiting for me to ask them to help me, because they didn't want to be overbearing and scold me and, finger wag at me about my eating or my lack of activity and things like that. They were relieved to hear that I wanted help or advice or something like that. It's like, if you think you're alone, you're not. Just ask around. You'll find the people that want to help you.
Powerful, man. Really appreciate it. Chris, any final thoughts for Larry?
Yeah, man, I just want to compliment you, brother. Like, your self-awareness and, your willingness to share, and you're very open about your story, and even kind of, the emotional side, right? Which even as men, we don't like to get into very often.
Right.
But I think, and I can absolutely relate with it, right? Like me for the alcohol and the drug side, like we had different drugs per se, but I know the feelings. I know that that feeling of pushing, like Ryan said, pushing that boundary farther, right? I'll never do this. I'll never do this. And next thing you know, dude, and I want to just pinpoint, like, it really takes pain for transformation, you know? And I just want to let you know, I respect you a lot, and sounds like you've probably come a long way, and I'm stoked to hear that you completed your 5K this fall.
Yeah. Yeah, it's supposed to be a turkey trot, so have me on in December. We'll see how it went.
There you go, brother. I love a good turkey trot. I've never done it, but my family does. I know they're for good time. It's a good. If you're doing 1.25 miles, you're locked in, brother. It'll be good.
Yeah.
You need to start documenting it, man.
Yeah.
You know, I've been thinking about doing that because I tried it about 6-7 years ago. Did it for about 6 weeks, and then, you know, life, as they say, got in the way, and that was all the excuse I needed to stop and put it on hold until I finally picked the mantle back up at the end of 2023. So I documented it back then, and I think because of, like, I kept it quiet because if I failed again, which was my mentality in the beginning, I only wanted it to be my failure. I didn't want to disappoint everybody else. You know, here I am almost 1.5 years into this. Maybe I should start documenting it because it looks like it's going to stick this time.
Yeah, bro.
Well, Larry, where can everybody keep up with what you are doing now and your Bears show?
Well, we're about to start ramping up with the Bears show, because this is kind of that wasteland of the season now that the draft is over, and that, like, the schedule comes out next week, and then it's like after the schedule comes out, there's nothing for 2.5 months until training camp starts at the end of July. But that's when I do what I call my opponent preview series, where the 14 opponents that the Bears are going to play this season, I talk to a podcaster, a blogger, a beat writer or something to represent each team, to kind of go over last year and preview what's ahead for each team in 2025. And that will usually carry me from the end of May right up until training camp starts. And then we can talk about preseason games, and then the football season starts, and we're full steam ahead after that. So, but I'm at
links? Where are the links for all that?
Yeah, it's BTU_Larry on X or Twitter or whatever the kids are calling it these days. Same on Instagram. I'm teetering on a TikTok account, because that just seems like a little bit more social media than I need in my life. But you know, I might throw that in there at some point, and I'm sure BTU_Larry will be available if I try for it there. But you know, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, anywhere you get your podcast, you'll be able to find the show.
TheRadcastNetwork.com.
Amen.
You can find Larry's show there. We really appreciate you coming on, brother.
I appreciate you asking me on. I appreciate it.
Hey, guys, you know where to find us, vibescience.com. You'll find all of the insights from today, links to Larry's content. Hopefully, maybe by the time this releases or soon thereafter, or even follow along on his journey. We appreciate him and his transparency. These things aren't easy to talk about. He's brave for doing it, and we appreciate it. We're always here to take you to your highest vibe. We'll see you next time on Vibe Science.
The content discussed on this show is provided for reference and educational purposes. The content is not an attempt to practice medicine or provide specific medical advice. Always consult your personal physician for medical advice and proper diagnosis.
Thanks for listening. This is Vibe Science. To learn more or watch full episodes, visit vibesciencepodcast.com. Here's to discovering your highest vibe.